Hi, Kyle Grossmiller from Pure Storage, and in today's technical demo video, we're going to walk you through how to set up automated AVS ESXi host lifecycle management for use with Pure Storage Cloud Block Store. For our sample environment here, we've got cluster 2, and that has the baseline 3 AVS ESXi hosts deployed inside of it. Now, as a review, we use something called run command to administer AVS with Cloud Block Store. I would recommend reviewing earlier demo videos for more of a primer on that. One of the important ones, though, that's covered here is build PCBS cluster. This initializes software iSCSI on the AVS hosts and then adds them as host objects to Cloud Block Store. And it takes a few arguments shown here. Now, you need to run this initially when you set up an AVS cluster, but what we're going to do automates running this for and pulls an AVS cluster for host membership changes. And we do that via this command, deploy PCBS AVS monitor. There are some other commands that we'll talk about as well, which enable you to add additional Cloud Block Store arrays to the management infrastructure. But to get started, you need to deploy PCBS AVS monitor. This creates 100% native Azure components inside of a resource group to essentially pull your AVS vCenter and look for changes to your AVS ESXi host management, and then kick off that build PCBS cluster to update host membership should it detect a change. We can see here we've got our AVS cloud name, the resource group that AVS cloud is in. We're deploying a net new resource group called kg-monitor-test. We specify what region that monitoring apparatus goes into. We do recommend selecting the same region as AVS and Cloud Block Store. We do leverage a CIDR block from your VNet that is connected to Cloud Block Store, as well as has the ExpressRoute connection into Azure VMware solution. Again, this is all covered in earlier demo videos, and I'd encourage you to watch those. The VNet that you're using may be in a different resource group than your AVS instance, so if so, you can specify that here. And then you can specify a CIDR block that this monitoring resource group will utilize. You can also optionally pre-allocate this, and so you can specify the subnet name as well. But for this example, we're just going to create a net new CIDR block from our existing VNet available address space. Lastly, you give it a pure Cloud Block Store instance. So I go ahead and enter in my credentials, and as we can see, skipping ahead a little bit, this does create that monitor resource group. So now if we look at resource groups, we can actually look at what's inside of it here. We've got app service plan, insights, key vault to store array credentials, and storage account to save some other important information. But the really important one is this Azure Function app. This Azure Function app will trigger that build PCBS cluster PowerShell command to update AVS host management should it detect a change. And you can see, when did it kick off and what happened via this monitor function here. Okay, so and quickly wanted to show inside of the Azure Virtual Net itself, we did specify that -28 CIDR block that's shown here, and that is delegated to Microsoft.web server farms. Again, you can pre-allocate that CIDR block if you want to, optionally, and you can also provide it with a more discrete name if you want as well for that subnet optionally. Okay, so let's go ahead and clear this out. A couple of other things that you can do here is you can show the pure Cloud Block Store arrays that are attached to this monitoring group. By default, we have the CBS array that we specified during deployment. You have to specify at least one. However, you can add additional CBS arrays to this if you want to be able to monitor, or I should say update Cloud Block Store, more than one Cloud Block Store instance. Similarly, you can also add additional AVS clusters to the monitoring instance. You do need to manually run that build PCBS function as well. Now we're going to go ahead. So we have 3 AVS hosts in cluster 2. We're going to upscale that to 5 and make sure that our monitoring app successfully enables software iSCSI as well as updates the Cloud Block Store host membership. So skipping ahead, it does take about 45 minutes to add, but if we look at our function app here, We can see that it started to execute, and if we look at cluster 2, we can see that it has already updated our AVS host membership to go from 3 hosts to 5 hosts, and correctly populated the iSCSI IQNs on CBS for us. So this is useful, if as a customer, if you are scaling up hosts. Additionally, when Azure VMware Solution, when they go to do something like an ESXi version upgrade, they will actually bring in a net new host. So again, this just automates that lifecycle management from an iSCSI management perspective with Cloud Block Store. Again, we can look at this monitor function and see that this has been executing. The polling interval by default with this is about 10 minutes. So essentially this monitoring infrastructure looks at the AVS vCenter every 10 minutes to see if there's been any host changes that have been made. Okay, so let's say that we've had our 5 hosts up for some time. We use them. We no longer need them. That temporary demand has subsided. Now I can simply scale down back from 5 AVS hosts down to 3. That will remove those 2 additional AVS hosts from cluster 2, and we'll go back down to our original number of 3. We can see here that's what's happening on the screen now. Those 2 hosts are being decommissioned. The AVS monitoring apparatus will detect that there has been another change in membership, and so it will rerun that build PCBS cluster command. And essentially, in this case, it is updating Cloud Block Store to go from 5 hosts in that cluster 2 instance back down to the original 3 hosts that we had before. So again, this just kind of runs in the background. I think the app service plan is about $50 a month US. And again, this kind of just runs in perpetuity. There's a lot more to read about this on our documentation site, including what all those different Azure components do in the monitoring group. Please take a look, and thanks for watching as always.